Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Superman. This movie is directed by James Gunn, who previously did the Guardians of the Galaxy films. This movie stars David Cornsweet, Rachel Brosnahan, and Nicholas Hoult. Now, the plot of this movie, like many Superman stories, is Superman is trying to stop Lex Luthor from destroying the planet in order to stop his arch rival, Superman. Now, going into this movie, I was excited because we were getting another Superman film. And I wanted more of Henry Cavill's Superman when Man of Steel came out. And instead of just getting another solo Superman movie, we got Batman vs. Superman. We got Justice League. We got Superman sharing movies as opposed to just the character being developed in his own solo films. So I wanted more of that. And then when I saw that James Gunn was making the Superman movie, I was like, okay, this could be good because this is him starting his own universe. So, having seen the movie, I really enjoyed it. Now, did we get James Gunn showing off his new bold vision for the DCEU or whatever it's going to be called? Or did we get a solo Superman movie that can be added to the other solo films that we're going to be getting next? Well, we got one of those things. Let me start with the acting in this movie. So, David Cornsweet as Clark Kent, Superman, he was really good. And it was a really bold decision to have a seemingly unknown actor play the role of Superman. Kind of like what happened with Henry Cavill and Christopher Reeve before him. It's really neat that they chose a lot of lesser known actors to play roles in this movie, except for some side characters that I'll get into. So, it was a really bold statement to make, and I liked how this version of Superman, unlike the ones before him, was, his voice was deeper. He, wasn't just a hero that was like a father figure that was, the tights and the guy that kind of stood above everyone else. This movie gave him the deep voice, but he also gave him something that we had really only seen since like Smallville, and that's the emotions. And that's a big part of what made this movie successful and really good, in my opinion, is the emotion. You didn't have Superman as this alien being that had powers that, was above everyone. This movie put the man in Superman. He didn't just rely on the powers, the gifts, the everything that a human is not, but rather, that's what the movie focused on. It focused on Superman. What he goes through every day. He put the decency in this hero. And a lot of aspects in this movie, much like Thunderbolts did with mental health, shine through in this movie. And, all I can say is this movie is about the one thing that I've always thought Superman to be about, and that's hope. As far as the supporting cast goes, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, I thought was wonderful. She was very attractive. She was also stern and tough as a reporter. She asked the hard questions, but also she was a loving companion to Superman. She was there. She was supportive, She also had her own complexity where, this movie drops you in the action as if Superman has already been established. There's no origin story here, but they also drop you in the middle of a Lois Lane Clark Kent relationship, which I'll get to in a little bit, how I think dropping the audience in the middle of something worked and maybe how it didn't work. And then Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, he was really good. He was really good. And I'm glad this movie did something that was kind of a breath of fresh air, and that's taking Lex and Superman and putting them on the same age level. Because a lot of interpretations take Lex and they make him older or they make him younger. But here, like in Smallville, they make them about the same age to where it's more relatable that, they may not have the same upbringing, but them being on the same age level would be one more thing to kind of just make Lex Luthor really bad. So I like that little attention to detail. This movie has a lot of attention to details that I really enjoyed. As a Superman fan, I got a kick out of a lot of stuff in this film. More of the supporting cast, you had Jimmy Olsen, I forget the actor's name, but he was played by the kid from the latest Vacation movie. he was good. He was a charmer, but also, he worked the Daily Planet with them. He didn't take one picture of anything, which was interesting. And then you had Perry White. They cast a guy from the show The Wire in this role. Very small role, but it got the point across. Again, they jumped you in the middle of stuff, so there's no origin story here. There's no, this is what Superman is, these are all the things he can do. All that stuff was talked about in exposition, or characters explaining stuff to the other characters in the room or what have you, that also explains it to the audience. And then you had supporting cast members like Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner. I've liked Nathan Fillion in every single thing he's done, and he's really good here. He was better than I thought he was going to be, because Guy Gardner is my least favorite Green Lantern, but here they gave him the kind of presence and, I'll say, Justice Gang level membership to where he could have been a Hal Jordan level Green Lantern, where he's like the leader of the group and he, takes charge and he's a little sarcastic and stuff like that. You had the girl that played Dora the Explorer as Hawk Girl, who, of the 3 Justice Gang members, as they call themselves, I cared for her the least, because she really had an attitude the whole time, and they could have made that character Plastic Man or Red Tornado or Green Arrow, or just a lesser Justice League member than they did, but, it is what it is. I will say the standout of those side characters is definitely Mr. Terrific. I forget the actor's name, is Eli Ganth. He was in the Twilight movie, the first one. He was also in X-Men First Class. He was the one X-Men and they got killed off. They didn't get enough screen time to shine, and here we are now, him as Mr. Terrific. They don't really need a Batman yet in this DC universe, because Mr. Terrific filled that role. He was a guy that was a genius, that had all this technology, that wasn't the best with people and their emotions, but he was definitely a standout. There's a really cool, I'll say, James Gunn-esque scene where there's an action sequence involving him, and they played this theme song over it that is going to now make the theme song more popular because it was used in the movie, but it was a really cool set piece. It was much like Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy with his arrow technique. It was like that with the T-spheres in Mr. Terrific. So this movie drops us in the middle of the action, literally, during a fight scene. But also, much like a comic book, or like, a story, it drops you in the middle of it. There's no origin story here. There's no Clark arriving to Earth as a child. Everything that we need to know to be brought up to speed on is explained or shown to us in the movie. This movie felt like everything I've enjoyed from Superman. It felt like Smallville, where you have characters that show emotion, have conflict, have arguments, have dialogue back and forth, and not just, you're a bad guy, I know I am, take me to jail. Nothing like that. It was a Lex and Clark type dynamic, where Clark got mad, got angry, showed emotion. This movie felt like Smallville. It felt like the Superman animated series. It felt like the old Christopher Reeve Superman movies, 1 through 4, all put together. Whether it's the villains, the tone of the movie, the way Superman carries himself. This was just a wonderful experience. This movie had a lot of comic book accuracy in it, from Guy Gardner and the Justice Gang, aka the Justice League, to a lot of little Easter eggs with terminologies like gods and monsters, or the Fortress of Solitude, and the robots they're run by, and just a whole bunch, way too many to mention in this video, but a lot of little comic book things that I was like, oh, that's a nice attention to detail. For instance, there's a character in the movie named Otis, who works for Lex Luthor. And if you watch the end credits, his name, I'll just say it says his whole name. And if you know the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeve very well, then you'll get the Easter egg. I really like that. The music in this film, just like every James Gunn movie, is really good. Very different, but there's music that really sets the tone of the film. I was afraid this movie was going to be too James Gunn-esque, like it was going to have too many characters, too many things going on, and just too many things James Gunn would be like, hey, remember, I'm directing this movie. This is the James Gunn movie, and you get a lot of that in this film. I did feel like this movie had way too much going on in it. It didn't take me out of the film, But there's a couple scenes where it's like you couldn't have slowed down for any drama. For example, Superman is never alone in this movie. And if he is, he's not by himself for very long. He shares a scene with someone every time we see him. And I could have wanted more, I should have got more scenes like that of Superman reflecting or just being by himself. He's constantly with a companion or a side character, and there's never just one-on-one time with him in the audience, so to speak. There's a scene between Superman and Lois where they're talking, they're kind of patching things up and they're drinking coffee, and behind them there's a scene of characters fighting a monster, and there's too much comedy and levity in this film, and not enough of the drama, not enough of the characters feeling the emotions, let alone letting the audience feel them as well. This movie had a lot of CGI in it. There was very little to where I was like, okay, that looks real. Now, this is an action-packed movie. It's like watching a cartoon show or something with a lot of fighting and bright colors, so you're going to have the CGI. But it was maybe a little too much, a little too bright for my taste. That's not a knock on the movie. It's just an observation. I also thought, the humor in this movie was a little too much. Like, James Gunn is used to doing comedy, dark comedy type stuff, but here he could have toned it down just a little bit to have this movie be grounded. Also, there's a scene involving, I'll say, his biological parents and Lex Luthor's plan, that I felt could have been resolved better. Like, there's something that's revealed in the movie, but instead of Superman acknowledging that, accepting that, and being like, okay, I know that is one way, but I'm going to be and live a different way, they just scrapped it all together. Lex Luthor's plan, I know it's going to be outrageous and, Earth destroying type thing, but it really wasn't that smart. It was like, if that plan didn't work, what were you going to do? Kind of thing. Involving a rift. That's all I'm going to say. This movie is very, very comic book-esque. And if you don't believe me, here's a scene in the movie. Mr. Terrific and Lois Lane enter a portal into a pocket universe. This movie was very comic booky, but it instilled and made you feel hope. It made you feel like you were seen and noticed, seeing Superman, this character that's up here, goes through the same kind of thing that we do down here. And that's what you want out of a Superman movie. And so I'm excited to see what they do next with this character and with the DC universe. And so because of that, I'm going to give Superman an A. The original Superman movie made you believe that a man could fly. Well, this movie makes you believe that a man can feel. So, till next time, guys. See you.